Hello, welcome to our Facebook Live. Sorry for the technical difficulties. I'm Paula Nowak, and I bring to you Vicki from California. We are talking tonight about confirmation, which is something is a specialty for her, and we are bringing her here to Georgia in the summer. I mean, like it's not hot enough, right? And tonight, you guys get to interact and ask questions. I will start some of the questions, but I thought we'd get started by just saying, hey, how's it going, Vicki?
Good, really good. A little stressy, but because I was worried it was something I was doing, so I'm glad we got it rolling.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we're worth the wait, I think.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about why you got started in confirmation and anything you think would be valuable for us to kind of get the conversation started.
Okay, well, when I originally started competing with my dogs, it was in competition obedience. And that was in the late 80s. I got my first show dog. Well, I co-owned a dog with a friend, a border terrier. That was my first one. Gosh, it's so bad. I mean, it must have been around 92, maybe something like that, 91, 92. And she's the one who kind of got me into confirmation. But for years, you know, my business did, all sorts of training, basic training, puppy training. We did obedience, we did competition obedience, we did rally, we did everything, behavior consulting, all that kind of stuff. So then I got my own show dog. That was my first purebred show dog because I did mixed breed confirmation. So I got him in 1995, and that was my first confirmation, you know, show quality standard dachshund. And I published my first book in 2007, and that was Positive Training for Show Books, because it was before, well, it wasn't before the internet, but it was before there was a lot of information available. Right. And, you know, positive reinforcement training has sort of trickled into a lot of different sports, into behavior modification, into everything, but it's kind of been slow because I think confirmation is so much about tradition. And people tend to learn everything from their mentors who are breeders. And so it's like whatever worked for them for years and years, and that's what they did. It's taught that this is how we do it. So it's been a little bit of an uphill battle. I think it's just been a few years that things are starting to be taken seriously, and the things I'm doing, and I'm getting closer with some handlers and stuff like that, which is really helping me to show them things that they don't know. So, you know, I still dabble in, you know, barn hunt and field trials and obedience here and there, but this is my sport. I mean, this is really what I like to do. I've started breeding again. I'm breeding a new breed. And so this is my gig.
That's awesome. And yeah, you know, that's why I think it's awesome that you get to come here, because for us at Canine Country Academy, it's not our gig. You know, Hannah's dabbling and a couple other students are dabbling. So it's going to be neat to learn, because I personally don't know a ton about it except for what I've learned in the last, you know, maybe 12 months since Hannah's been digging into it. And some of our students kind of show some interest too. But it's nice that you have some other things that, you know, you've done and you've experienced and you keep doing, because it all feeds in together, right? Because you're just keep learning.
Well, and I think that, you know, confirmation is, to me, you know, not as complex to train as so many of the other, you know, things that we do, but it doesn't mean that they don't need any training. I mean, they need some training, but we really, really, really need more, not just people who know about confirmation, but actually skilled trainers teaching these things, and also working with people who have behavior problems with show dogs, because that needs to be addressed properly. That's one thing that I don't think necessarily should be learned just from the, you know, the people in the breed because they may not be doing it correctly, or they may not be changing how they're doing it based on new information we get about how animals learn and all this kind of stuff. It's sort of just like, this is how we do it, you know?
Right. This is how we've always done it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And we have seen a few dogs that are really shy, and that's something that you're going to be coming. That's our last day together, is from shy to showy.
Yes.
And, you know, it's hard to know, like, what dogs should be shown. Like, if they're a little nervous, should they be shown? You know, should they have this natural ability. What are your thoughts on, even just starting and knowing, should I do it? And if maybe my dog's a little shy, then what should I do?
Yeah. So, first you want to make sure that you have a quality dog. Like, it's okay to do it if you don't have a quality dog, but you probably won't win. And that might be frustrating or disheartening for people. So to begin with, they need a dog who is at least, fairly close to the standard and is quality enough to go in there and say, I'm saying this is the best one here. But then you have, the personality and the temperament. And that comes, I talk to people about that because people always ask that, well, if the dog is shy, why are they even going to breed this dog? Well, if you have a Pharaoh hound, like it looks like is in your office there, that's a breed. You know what I mean? That's a breed that might not be shy, but certainly will take offense to a stranger putting its hands all over it. And there are breeds like that where sometimes it's just that sort of primitive or aloofness, or I've seen like a lot of guarding and livestock guarding breeds where it's just like they're offended if a judge comes up and gets into their space. And with those dogs, some of them, they have to open the mouth up and show the teeth count. So there's, it's like, if a dog is really, really not okay, meaning that some basic behavior modification after, a few months isn't changing it, then we need to talk to a behaviorist. Maybe they need to talk to somebody else about getting meds on board, because if it's a behavior problem that we can modify, that should happen. We should be seeing changes. And most of the time we do. There's been a few dogs where I just was like, it's not safe for this dog to be in the ring. It's not safe for someone to touch it. It's not safe for you to get it upset. It's, potentially going to hurt someone. Then it becomes an ethical issue where it's like, this is not okay. But for me, it is just as not okay for it to be scary for the dog. So I don't want them just to be held in position and coping with it. I want to make sure that they're actually okay with it. And like with the breed, like I keep saying Pharaoh hounds because you just mentioned one, but like with them, they're never gonna, a Pharaoh hound's not ever gonna, in most cases, act like a golden retriever. It's not just going to turn into, hey, everybody touch me, even though I don't know you, on your terms, So we get them to a point where they say, okay, it's okay. I can do this. I'm comfortable with it. It might not be that they prefer to go lure coursing the next day, but they're willing and able to do it and feel safe and comfortable and confident. And that's what I want. What I don't
enjoy it enough, right? Like it's not maybe their favorite, but it's not
with their person, hopefully. And a lot of the sighthound people, I feel like, sort of collectively have understood sensitive dogs, and some of them will still use aversives or be heavy-handed, but not like you'll see in some breeds, right? Mm-hmm. So you just know if you push a sighthound, it's, it's going to probably shut down and not do it. And that's not going to look showy. So you get these breeds that, or, these individual dogs that maybe they had one incident that made them not like it. Maybe they weren't introduced to it properly. Maybe the first time they moved away, they were told, no, knock it off. You're going to hold still. And then that made it no good for them. So it's really a matter of changing everything around. And then we're constantly having to assess, like, okay, are we making progress? Is the dog starting to feel good about this? Because if we're doing it right and we're making progress, it should be getting better. But I ask my clients to pull their dogs and not show them until we're sure that the dogs are actually at a place where, they're going to be okay going in the ring. And if they're not, then I tell the owners, if you're going to enter them, because we're never really sure until we do it, right? You have to be willing to say, I would like to be excused, and ask to be excused if it goes bad for your dog. Now, a lot of new people aren't comfortable doing that, sometimes they're just not. But so that's my thing. I want the dog to be okay with it. It's not enough for me that they just do it. I need to know that they're okay. And I would like them to be enjoying it, and to me, their well-being comes first. We need to make sure they're good. And if they're good, then let's go for it and try and win and all that. But the dogs need to be comfortable with that.
Right. They come first, right?
Yeah, they do. I mean, they do for me, and they do for the people I'm willing to work with. If it's not a priority for someone, I am not the trainer for them.
Absolutely.
You
And
know,
so what's the ideal age to get started? You know, let's say that you're a rookie, you know, you're not the breeder. And if I was going to get a dog, I'm not. But like, you know, what age would you start?
I start immediately. Immediately. My show dogs come home, and if they're not born here, which I haven't had one, the last one that was born here just turned 14. So that's the last show dog that's living here. So if they're not born here, they come here, and you know, I start assessing things immediately. Like, hey, let's go for a walk in the neighborhood and see what that looks like for you. Because one dog I got, you know, I took him on his first walk, and I was like, oh man, we got a problem. Like, he's not okay with some stuff. I finished his championship. I don't think the breeder was happy because that's all I would do. I said, this dog doesn't like it. I'm not going to try and, you know, make him a campaign special, because even though he's beautiful, it's not in him. I could do a whole bunch of desensitization and try and but it's like, why? He wants to he doesn't want to do this. This is not super fun for him. So the first thing I'm doing is just sort of seeing how he takes in new things. You know, what does he do when he meets a new person? What does he do when he sees a new dog? All that kind of stuff. And then I'll start working on their training. And one thing that I do differently than probably most people do, or most trainers do if they're not doing conformation, is my first default behavior is a stand. So I want them to offer that if they don't know what else to do. It's like, if you're not sure what to do, throw me that behavior.
When all else fails,
yeah. So I start training stands, you know, right away. And then also I want to make sure that they're comfortable with having all their body parts handled. So I'm assessing that. You okay if I do this? Are you okay? Is there anything that needs some special care about making the dog feel comfortable? And then if it's a baby dog, it's great. It's like, cool. You know, if this dog's 4 months old, I can't even show him till he's 6 months, except for like in the 4 to 6 puppy competition. So I have plenty of time to sort of work on it and make sure he's comfortable with it.
Make it fun, right? Make it a game.
Yeah. I want to make it fun for them. And, you know, we now have the AKC 4 to 6 month competition, which means that you can, for no points, you can just go in there and show a puppy. And I really do like that, because most judges are really soft and nice with puppies. And, you know, it does give them a chance to have that experience before they're 6 months old, and potentially getting a little bit more you know, independent and kind of wanting to do their own thing. I mean, I want as much exposure to what I'm going to expose them to in their life as a baby. So absolutely. I will get them out. If the dog is confident and okay with that, then let's get him out and do it.
Absolutely. We have a question from someone else, so I think we'll take that. So Pat asked, should dogs on behavior meds even be in the ring, hence be bred?
Okay, so in my opinion, you know, they're not allowed to be medicated in the ring. Like, you're not supposed to have a dog on any medication in the ring. So, you know, for me, no. I mean, you're not supposed to do that. So I wouldn't do that. But people will interpret the rules they read, you know, different ways. But for me, you know, no. If a dog has to be on medicine to be in the ring, no. And as far as what I breed it, you know, I have to just hope that everybody is being ethical in their own breeding programs. I can only be in charge of my breeding program. There are, like I said, some dogs where it's like, if I feel like this is not safe, this is torture for the dog, somebody's going to get hurt, somebody's going to get bitten, another dog is going to get hurt, then I'm going to say, I will tell the person, I don't think it's safe to have this dog in the ring. But if it's mildly unsure, or if it had a bad experience, or just sort of doesn't know, you know, we can usually turn all that around. But would it be bred? To me, it just depends on the severity of it. It depends on the breed. You know, my main breed now is Louchen. Absolutely not. If the dog is sensitive, I mean, you know, this is supposed to be a totally social, outgoing breed. So I am going to be real sensitive to that. Whereas, you know, if it was a cattle dog that's being suspicious of strangers, which is something written into their breed standard, then I'm going to be like, well, you know, I'm not going to have an aggressive one that I'll show, but I'm going to be a little bit more open to how much work I have to do if it's a dog like that, if that makes sense.
Totally makes sense. And it all depends, right?
Yeah, it does. But going back to that question, you know, people are going to do this anyways. And I want to try and help the dogs that have to go through this. And I feel like, even though sometimes it's sort of, like that, like it's a conflict, like, oh, should I, does this dog, do you really want to show this dog? Do you really want this to present your kennel?
Right.
But I need to do my best to make it better for the dogs if it's going to happen anyways, because if they do it the other way, meaning the way that a lot of them do it, it's going to be really bad for dogs. Like, there are a lot of people who are like, no, he's beautiful. That dog's getting finished. Like, I don't care. And if you've got tiny little dogs, they'll just hold them they'll just hold them there, I mean,
Right.
they can't do anything about it. So, it's up to the people, but to me, it is individual, depends.
Yeah, and you have to assess everything.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's very fair. So I had some questions written up ahead of time that actually Hannah provided for me as well, because she's really into this. For me, it's like, you'd probably have to talk to me for days for me to, to get any kind of knowledge, right? So, you mentioned teaching a stand right away and make that your default, right? Because you're going to reinforce that the most, right?
Yeah.
And that's what you want. When you're starting that, is it best to shape it, use a box, hand stacking? What's your go-to?
I like all dogs to be taught to be hand stacked and free stacked. So hand stacking is when you put them into position. Free stacking is when they offer it. And I will tell you from experience that, some breeds are much easier to free stack than others. If the dog is almost square, it's not hard. It's generally not very hard to teach a good free stack. But if you've got a Basset, or some of the sight hounds or a Dachshund, I mean, it can be more challenging because they are built in a way that they just don't always land completely, how they're supposed to. So I train both of those. And yeah, it's, with the hand stacking, I developed a technique that I call the focused hand stack, where I'm actually shaping the hand stack. So normally what people would do is just take a dog and it's like, I'm going to stack this dog. So, and if you tell, positive dog trainers this, they're like, that's crazy. Like, that's a lot to do to a dog who's never had that done. So you're talking about walking him up, holding his collar, and repositioning each of his forelegs and then presenting him. That's a big chunk. That's a lot of pieces. So what I do is put food out there where the dog can see it. It's eye level for the dog, but they can't reach it, but I can reach it. We walk him up. Yes, mark that, feed that. And then if he stays there, yes, I'll mark it again and feed. So then I'm going to fix that leg, mark and feed. So it's like I'm shaping that hand stacking, and it works beautifully. It works great for puppies because they have that food in front of them so they can focus on that. So all they have to do is look at that food. Because what I used to do, and what a lot of people do, especially with puppies, is hold food in the mouth while you're stacking it. So it's eating while you're stacking it, which can work really well, but it really does become a crutch because the dog's not thinking about what it's doing. It's just eating food. Yeah. So I really want the dog to know, you're doing this thing. I'm going to pay you for that. Now I'm going to do this to you. Now I'm going to pay you for that because you let me do that and you keep it there. Now I'm going to move this leg. Nice job, buddy. You let me do that. Right. So I'm sort of shaping it. So I teach, that's one of the first things I'll do. Teaching them just to offer the stand. Every piece of the free stack, I'm going to, do differently. But first, I just need that dog to offer stands. If he doesn't offer stands, then I can't start teaching him to step forward and fix his front feet and fix his rear feet. So I need him to offer that first. So that's the first thing I do. And then sometimes, like this puppy, me and my friend just imported from Australia, we got him at 6 months old. She had already shown him in Australia a bunch of times. So I put him on a lead and he free stacks beautifully. And it's like, cool, that I don't have to do much except for pay for that. Right. So now he gives me more of that. He needs a little more training and work I'm doing on the moving part, but the standing is easy. So if you get the behavior, you just reinforce it. And the thing is, if a dog's built properly, he ought to stand properly. Like if he's built well, it's not going to be a lot of work to stand there correctly. So when you get that, you pay that rather than trying to make it complicated and teach him all, fixing all this stuff. It's like, if he just knows how to plant his body, pay that. Just reinforce the heck out of it.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
And then we're going to start teaching them to, to gait on the lead too. That's a big one. And I didn't used to think, we needed to worry about, not that we didn't need to worry about it, but that we needed to worry about that as much early on, but we do, because so many people are teaching loose leash walking and heeling and like competition heeling, that we're ending up with all these dogs that pace. And they're pacing because they've been taught to accommodate the speed of the handler. So they're just trying to stay in that position. So we need to make sure that they know how to trot and they know how to get out in front and trot, really well when we need them to do that, so that they have, not that they can't do the heeling, but that they have both skills, and that you're learning, the handler's learning how to let them know when they need either or of those things, if that makes sense.
It does. And so when you're trying to get them to, not pace if they've already started, or to, go at the right pace, if you will, is it the handler basically adjusting their movement so the dog can do its natural movement?
It's all that stuff. It's, equipment that becomes an environmental cue to the dog that we're doing this thing and not that other thing. It is the position. And we talk about that in, my movement workshops, or even any workshop where we talk about movement, that, how you have your hand when you're doing like heeling needs to be very different from how you hold your hand when you're in the ring. Because in the ring, in the show ring, we don't want the dog looking at the handler. We want them looking straight ahead. And I don't mind if they're, actually I want them a little out in front, and you have to train those things, but it can become really, really clear to the dog. In other words, it's, people are like, oh my God, like the dogs can't get it, but they can get it. They can be really, they can be, really, really, really solid on all the different behaviors if we just make it very clear for them and pay them when they're doing it right and let them know. What frustrates me,
right?
Right. And at least, if you have the different equipment and you have cues that the dog knows, he can get it right. Right. But when people get on the dog and correct him physically, so if people are using corrections and they're getting on the dog for getting out in front or for not staying in heel position, he's got something to worry about if he trots out in front, right? So I get real frustrated when I see people who correct the dog for pacing when I know that they also correct the dog for pulling. It's like, you have to decide what you want and teach them so it all makes sense.
Absolutely. Yeah. Clarity for the poor dog.
Yeah. I was just watching last week in our sort of show dog prep schools. That's my online college for show dogs, is this Vishla that's, he's was in the best in show ring last week. And like, I got tears when I saw it, because he was trained by me and his owner, but then he was handed off to a handler because she had surgery and couldn't show him for a while. But then she was so happy with how they worked as a team, he stayed with him. But when this handler got back from his down and back and he went to take the dog around on the ring, around to the end, and this is a dog who like knows how to heel, he hunts in the field, like he knows how to do these different things. But when the handler said to him with his hand, get out in front, the dog just shot out to the end of the lead, exactly to where he needed to be. And it was just like, it was so beautiful to see him know exactly what that meant. Because if the handler were to said, I need you to be back here, he would have cued that. Or if he needs him to stop and stand, he cues that. So it's just a matter of us being really good at our training and being clear to the dogs and sort of, but there's a lot of different little tricks I have for pacing. I mean, we do cavalettis. I have a target trotting technique that I got from Kay Lawrence. So there's a few different things out there we can do to try. Most people just try and lift them before they take off or bump them when they go, and that works for some dogs. But I really would rather teach them just how to do it right. It's stressful to get in there and then have to rely on doing something that's going to make it be okay in that moment. You know what I mean?
Right, because it could fall apart in a test type setting, right? Because our nerves go up, and so if they need a lot of help in training, it's not going to look so great in that environment.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
So I want to open it up and make sure people know that they can ask questions.
Okay.
Somebody said, Pat said that she was having issues. I don't know if there's any issues with the feed. I don't have anything on my end, so hopefully that got better for her. She has a rule rural internet. So if you guys have questions, this is your time. And I'll do a little commercial while we're letting people ask questions.
Okay.
When Vicki comes to us, she is going to be here for 3 days. So, we were like, let's do it big style if we're going to bring her in. You still have one private lesson opening for 30 minutes on Friday. That's in the afternoon. We also have for anyone who wants to teach it. So this, 3 days is not just for people who want to handle their dog. It's actually for any instructor who would like to either improve upon their skills or just add this to, the many things. We get asked all the time for help in conformation, and we dabble in it, but it's going to be great to get more knowledge. And so we would love it if other instructors would do the same. Even if you're not going to teach it, maybe, I think it's valuable because we find some students really benefit from, if a conformation student comes into class, a puppy class, and you're asking them to sit, and they're kind of giving you pushback, you'll understand why and how to help them be successful, right? Then on Saturday, we have the show-stopping stacks. And then on
I think
Sunday,
we're doing the combination. I think we're doing show like the pros. So we're going to do.
Oh, yes, you're right.
It'll be a lot of fun and a lot of information on that day of just all sorts of handling stuff.
Awesome. Full day. Yeah. We're nice. We don't start till 10 a.m. Nice. And then on Sunday, we have from shy to showy. So like we talked about in our beginning, dogs who are maybe a little more shy or maybe had a negative experience. How do we help those dogs? And we have a ton of working spots. Vicki was like, open it up, bring the folks, right? Because these dogs, unlike, going to scent work things, they could be in the room all at the same time. They could be hanging out in their kennels, and we have big space. So, make sure to check out and see what would be appropriate for you to do. You can also
and from shy to showy, not to interrupt, but from shy to showy is appropriate for any dog. I mean, it's I took methods that we've been using for behavior modification forever for dogs who are reactive or aggressive or fearful, and then just tweaked it for show dogs. But I've had people come when they're not even showing their dogs because they just, like, I have one lady who's done a ton of stuff. Her dog's beautifully trained, but he's reactive to some stuff. And she had no place where she could just go. And she's like, nobody just gets what I need. And it's like, well, what happens? And what happens is if you make eye contact with him, he goes off. So by the end of the day, one workshop, he was seeking eye contact from me and then wagging his tail when we did it. And it's just like, it's the way we set up the workshop to allow a lot of repetitions that makes it really, really beneficial. And then what I encourage is people like you who host the workshop that you then open up from shy to showy practices so people can continue to get this type of practice that they need in a safe environment that's not going to the dog show and saying, can you go over my dog? Because what people will say is you need to make him just hold still. He needs to get over this. And then it goes, they need a safe place to be able to practice this stuff appropriately.
No, it's an excellent idea. We are totally open to that because there's so much, we can control in a training environment to help them be set up, right? Absolutely. Exactly. All right. Well, we have a question from Hannah, and I will ask it for her. She happens to be here in the office with me. So for the judge touching, is it better to teach your dog that you specifically do something, oops, hold on, I gotta scroll it down, like holding their face or a specific hand placement, or ideally would you like not to be near the dog and have them just stand still?
It depends on the breed. I would not expect that of a dog in the classes. So in the classes means the dog's not a champion yet, right? So if the dog's already a champion, he's a special. That means he ought to go in there looking flashy and knowing what he's doing and everything should be fabulous. There are some breeds where, people will get out the end of the lead when the judge is examining the dog. We would obviously never do that with a little table breed. I mean, some people will like if the dog is really good, I've seen people with Bostons and Shelties where they're put them out and get a few feet back and the dog just holds it and they just kind of bait with food. But, I like to stay connected. So for me as a handler, I don't have breeds that I really need to worry about that with. So I do stay connected and touching in some way. I really like the idea of teaching the dogs to get comfortable with just placing their chin in your hand. You don't want to have your hand wrap around, like if this is the dog's head, you don't want your hand to wrap around and cover up the underjaw or any part here. But there's this little nook in here where you can just kind of put your finger so the dog gets used to that. And then, then you're just kind of staying connected with them. And depending on the dog, I will move. Like I usually show table breeds and dachshunds for a long time. And with every picture of me showing a dog, if I'm, I like to get out in front. I like to just get out in front of the dog, out of the way. Most of the dogs I'm really close to. So me being out in front encourages them to come forward and sort of connect with me when the judge looks at them. And then I kind of change positions as I need to help them be able to be seen. But also I do want to stay connected. But I've had a lot of dogs where, we have to experiment with where it makes more sense. Does the dog feel better if the owner is here? Because some dogs are so sensitive that if the owner's too close and kind of crowding over him and then the judge comes, they're like, no, this is like too much. So sometimes you want to have the handler actually get back a little bit and present, but not put too much, spatial pressure on the dog up over them and stuff like that. So we experiment with that. But I personally like to I like to touch in some way. It's, it's really, really sexy and flashy when a dog holds a stand and, can be examined. But I would reserve the fancy stuff for when the dog's like, going for bigger wins. In other words, when people come to me with class dogs, we just want them to look presentable. We want them to look good and we want them to look flashy. But it's like, if they come to me and they're like, okay, we're going for group placements and stuff, it's like everything has to be times 10. The dog has to flip around.
So should your performance, basically.
Yeah. And as you move up, the competition gets tougher because you're competing against handlers who, have been doing this since they were 5 years old. Some of them, they literally have been at the dog show since they were kids. So they don't even think about every little thing we have to think about doing. They don't even know they're doing because they've been doing it so long. You know what I mean? It's like driving a car. They don't even think about when they're letting the dog go out in front of them that their hand is changing to allow some more lead to slide out. They don't even think about, just how they switch hands to, do things. I mean, all of this stuff comes naturally. And for us, we have to think about it and work up on it more. But yeah, when you get to the higher levels, for sure, like I'll send you the video of that real sexy, showing last weekend. But I mean, he came back and he just flipped around and nailed his free step. And then the handler was able to go out to the end of the lead and he leaned forward more, and that sexy stuff is really, it's important to win at the higher levels, I mean, because it looks like the dog is demanding it, Did you watch Westminster on TV?
I didn't.
Okay. Well, I was there. I was there watching.
I watched your stuff that you posted.
Well, I did, I mean, it's like a lot of people, I was really excited because the standard dachshund won the group and it's only the second time in history that that's happened. But that dog was so flashy and he's always been, I mean, I've seen him show a million times and that's how he shows. But like, that's the kind of thing that's going to make a dachshund get noticed when there's an Afghan in the ring with it, right? Like you have this variety of dogs. And so you really want them to look confident and like they know what they're doing and there's no question. Everything just happens right when it needs to happen. I mean, that's the dream, but certainly it gets more competitive as you get higher up,
Right. Absolutely. Just like anything.
Yeah.
We have another question from Pat. She says that she really appreciates the philosophies that we're discussing tonight. And she's got a 2-year-old Picard who she does performance because cannot be around other people. Would our Sunday workshop be appropriate?
Yes. From shy to showy would be perfect. So he's not comfortable. The dog's not comfortable with people.
That's what, if she can elaborate, that might help us, but that's what she said.
Yes. That workshop is really set up where before we even start working with the dogs, we talk about the dogs, and we get the dogs out one at a time, and we assess what we see. And we start to look at things like, there are a lot of times where I'll say, we need a cone, because when we're doing our practice work, I don't want anybody to get closer than this to where this dog is. And sometimes I'll pull out a platform and be like, let's put him on a platform, because sometimes a little height can make them feel a little bit safer. And the dog might not be in a stack. I mean, I don't care about any of that right now. This is about making him feel safe. So yeah, we have a lot of dogs, and honestly, there's been a lot of show dogs that in from shy to showy that I don't touch, certainly not on the first session. And sometimes people who are used to traditional training, they're like, aren't you going to touch him? Aren't you going to touch him? You probably want to put your hands on him. And it's like, no, he's not comfortable. There's absolutely no way I'm going to put my hands all over this dog, because any progress we're making is going to get blown the minute we ignore what he's trying to tell us and push him. So yeah, I would feel very comfortable having him in there. I mean, we do have to be careful of dogs that are, if the space just isn't big enough and the dog is so reactive and uncomfortable that we can't keep him safe or feeling comfortable, then maybe that won't work. But that would, I've been able to make some pretty uncomfortable dogs okay in even smaller spaces. And a lot of it is just how we set it up and how we, these dogs, and anybody who works with fearful dogs, it's really quickly, like the change doesn't happen fast, but sometimes it does. But what does happen fast is that the dogs start to realize that you're understanding them now. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you're listening.
Yeah, there's just all of a sudden where I start to approach a dog and he does a very small, subtle behavior, and I stop and say, was that too much, buddy? That he's just like, oh my God, she actually heard me. So then they start to feel more confident. And that stuff happens in 1 or 2 sessions. And sometimes even I was working with a pro handler not too long. This is somebody who's, famous, who wins a lot, who, they're showing big time dogs. And she had a little, I won't say the breed, but it was a toy breed that was worried. And it was just like, I was just having her approach me. And as long as he was excited, feed him and walk away from me. And she was like, why are we doing that? And it's like, because look at how excited he is to approach me the next time, right? It's like in one session, he was going, oh, I get to move away from her. Oh, I get to choose to approach again and then move away from her, which made him keep coming closer and closer to me. But that can take some time for people to sort of, grasp that and to see that happen, unless we're sort of explaining and narrating and helping and coaching them, if that makes sense. You froze for me. So now I'm not sure what's happening.
Hello and welcome back to our conversation with Vicki. We were all just at the edge of our seat, and then my computer said, no more storytelling. So we are going to get back into that story. So Vicki, you were sharing with us about a handler, a professional handler, and small dog, and you were giving him some tips.
Okay, so the deal with this little dog was that he's worried of the judge, and it's actually a really beautiful dog. And so what I was having her do was just, she took him pretty far away. I had her approach, and he was happy. So I said, okay, feed him and then go away. And then I said, do that again. Okay, feed him there and go away. And she was like, I don't get it. And it's like, do you see that every time you walk away, it increases his confidence? He gets a release of pressure and a second reinforcer, and then he chooses to approach again. And when we give them choice and we watch their body language and make those decisions, the dog starts to get that stuff really quickly. And then I could see, do you see how his tail up is coming so much closer to me now? And she was like, Oh, yeah. And this is somebody who makes a living looking at dogs and presenting dogs. And so those little kinds of changes, I find the dogs get pretty quickly when they just realize that they can choose, and it starts to roll pretty well usually then when they start to get that.
Well, and sometimes I know even for me, I need someone else to look at whatever I'm doing with my dog and give me feedback because I don't see it, right? Like even as a professional, I don't see it always. And so having someone else who has the skills, who doesn't have that relationship, can point things out that you just weren't aware of.
Exactly. And, just about from shy to showy, the first time I offered the workshop, so it was an article and then it was a workshop and then I went on vacation and had a lot of time and then I wrote the book. And now it's an online course. It's these workshops and everything. But when I first did the first workshop, I had a breeder in there who was in her breed for 50 years.
Wow.
40 something or 50 years. She's the queen of her breed. Let's put it that way. She's highly respected. She's known everywhere, worldwide. And here she came to my workshop and she's just like, I don't know what to do with this. This dog was imported from Italy. This is not, but for her to come and be like, can you help me? I can't teach her a thing about wolfhounds, right? But she can teach me about them. And she did when I was going to show one and stuff. But she just knew that she needed something extra with this dog. I had somebody in there who was in Danes for 30 years. I had somebody with a Pharaoh hound who had been in her breed for 20 years. So these people came just like, help me. I don't know what to do. And I love that, there's no shame in just not knowing how to deal with this or, just needing to learn a few more things about body language or a few more things about stress signals to really have a better idea of where the dog's at emotionally and be able to help them. Because I was just thinking about this today that you can, there's a lot of people who use real heavy aversives still in agility, big time still in obedience. I mean, people are still ear pinching and forced retrieving and all that kind of stuff. But it's like, there's no rule in those sports that the dog look happy. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, in agility, he's probably going to go slower, but in conformation, sad or droopy is just not going to be competitive. People will take dogs, they will, stumble through a championship, maybe, but if you want a dog who's really going to be successful, especially if you want like a dog to be a campaigned, like a top winning dog, they have to love it. They have to know what to do. They have to enjoy doing it, and they have to look like they're having fun, or they're not going to be successful at that level. So I do like that we sort of have that built in, where it's like, you can try and make them do it, but if they you can't force someone that look happy, if they're not. That has to be honest,
Absolutely. And before we got cut off, we actually had a question from Arlene. She is, considering coming to the workshop, and she has never done conformation to my knowledge, and she's getting a Great Dane puppy in the future. It's exciting. And she said, well, if I had to pick one day to come when you're here, what workshop would you recommend for her if she was thinking about getting started with the Dane in the future?
Show like the pros. Because from shy to showy, really will focus on if there's an issue. And like I said, sometimes it's just that the dog's aloof. Sometimes the dog is fine, but doesn't like having the collar put on. I mean, there can be one piece we're fixing, but if you're starting out on just a clean slate and you're like, I don't know what to do, come to that one, because I'm going to give you a lot of stuff that will give you a place to start for sure.
Awesome.
Yeah. Great. And if she doesn't have her puppy yet, come with some other dog. That's all right. I mean, it ain't going to be a Dane unless it's another Great Dane, but we can start, teaching some of those things and giving her an idea of what to do and what'll be, what she'll need to do with that baby when he comes or she comes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. All right. Well, any other questions out there tonight? We've had a very good conversation so far. I've learned a lot. I just, with that whole weekend, my mind will just be blown.
Yeah, it's really funny because people, you know, the handlers, especially the ones you see on TV, those are, you know, those are the cream of the crop. I mean, those are the people who are the top handlers, and they make it look very easy. And people go, I could do that. And then you put like a wild, you know, like flat coated retriever in their hands, and they're just like, oh my God, like, how do you want a Doberman puppy? It's like, oh my God, how does this work? And it's like, yeah, they make it look easy because they're skilled and they've really worked at doing it. You know what I mean? So there's a lot more into it. It's not super complex, but it is asking a dog to be touched by a stranger all over the place every weekend, and to enjoy it, and to be okay with it, and to move beautifully, and to stand beautifully, you know, and to be okay with being groomed before, and to, you know what I mean, to be okay with a dog right there.
Right.
You know, so, and in some breeds, I mean, this will get me off on a tangent, but I'll just say it. You know, there are some breeds where, like some of the terriers, they still spar them, which means they face the dogs towards each other. Bring out that one, bring out that one. Yeah. So, you know, yeah, if you bring out a couple of Airedales or a couple of Kerry Blue bitches, and you know, or even dogs, and you face, you know what I mean? Getting that worked up, and then having to go over and be calm and look beautiful again, that's asking a hell of a lot of a dog. Wow. It's a lot. And so all of these things that look so easy, there's really a lot that goes into it. But it's not, it is something that we can all do. I mean, all of us started somewhere. So sometimes people are struggling, and I'm like, you got this. Like, just, you know, you're not going to get better until you keep trying to get better and you keep practicing. So I just don't, I try and discourage people from getting frustrated if they don't win, or if their dog, you know, their dog doesn't look like that dog. It's like, well, you know, he was practically born in the conformation ring. You know, his mother was showing dogs when she was pregnant with him. Like, he's going to be a better handler than you for a while, right? But we have a lot of advantages. You know, we only have to dress for one dog. We only have to train one, or, you know, dog. We only have to groom one dog. We don't have 40 dogs. We don't have a string of dogs to be rushing around. So we do have the advantage of like really putting everything we have into this individual. But I encourage that we do that without too much pressure. I mean, let it be fun for the dog too, and let it be just like another activity. Just like conformation can be as fun for dogs as agility or obedience, if we just make it like any other sport where we're having fun and it's really just all about this thing we're doing with our dogs. Like, for me, I don't use a handler because this is like my dog sport. This is what I want to do with them. Right. So, you know, I mean, I enjoy that time with them. So I just encourage people to like enjoy the journey of learning how to get there. You know, it takes some time, but if you do it, it feels really, really good if you finish your own dog, and you know what I mean? You did it and you worked through it, and there's no shame in having a handler, but if people want to do it themselves, they should really try.
And that probably would give them some insight if they were going to hire a handler, what they're paying for, right? If you do it yourself,
exactly,
kind of learn, right? Like, what is my dog going to go through?
And it's really funny because people will you know, say, oh, it costs that much for, you know, a private lesson, but they will not think twice about paying a handler $125 to show the dog, plus all, you know, split expenses with all the other people going there, plus, you know, boarding for plus the grooming fee. You know what I mean? It's like, it's expensive. It's really expensive.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's not that bad if you're just showing a dog, you know, if you're having a handler show a dog, but it depends on how long it takes the dog to get finished, you know? It does add up. And if you're, you know, a dog who's being campaigned with a handler, I mean, it's very expensive. You know, you're looking at tens of thousands of dollars a year.
Wow.
A lot of money. Yeah.
It is a lot of money. And so what is, for just like, you know, again, me being the novice that I am, for someone who maybe isn't going to breed their dog or stud out their dog, what is some of the motivation to show? Because I know some people do it, you know, do it because it's fun.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's it. I think that there's a lot of people that they just want to try it. They want to do something with their dog. Sometimes people get a dog and it's a beautiful dog, like that Remy, the Vizsla that I was telling you, that he's basically our school mascot. But, you know, I mean, he's a multiple best in show winner. And that girl came to me and said, I got this dog. The breeder said he's pretty and I should try showing him. And I was like, yeah, you need to show him. I mean, he's a beautiful puppy. So, you know, she took him to #1 dog in the country on her own, her first show dog, before he's, you know, was with the handler. So it's a lot. But, you know, I think it's just, I think people sometimes want to do it just because it looks like it would be fun. It's another thing to try. And it's another title for the dog. Yeah, and it can be beneficial to the breeder. It can be beneficial to the sire or the dam, you know, if they're wanting to get, you know, like a register of merit, let's say, for a bitch, and she needs to have, you know, been the mother of 4 champions or something like that. Then they want to get, you know what I mean?
Right.
Get more dogs up there, that kind of thing. So it can be like that for where it's more for the breeder, something like that. Like I have one client that she wants nothing to do with this. She has no interest in conformation, but a breeder sold her a pretty dog and she brought the dog to me and said, look, I'm just waiting for the dog to be old enough to do agility. I just want to get this out of the way. I will not take him in the ring. And so she brought him to me, I mean, every week for a few months, and I trained him up. And then I handed him off to my handler friends who they're a really good couple, and she's a phenomenal groomer. And this is a dog that needs a lot of grooming. And I said, go to them, and they finished him in a few weekends and he's done.
Wow.
And now she's like, maybe he needs his grand championship. And I'm like, you just cut his hair off and do it good. Like, let's just do other stuff for a while. But, you know, she didn't want to stop working with me. So now we put a couple trick titles on him. And now I'm coaching her in obedience because, you know, I mean, we have a good relationship. I really like her and the dog, but he's not ready to be as special. You know, he's just a year old. And he doesn't have he doesn't have anything for that yet. He needs to grow up. And she should do the things she wants to do with him, you know.
She wants experience.
Yeah, exactly. But he's a champion now. So if she wants to come back to Conformation, she can. But he got his hair cut off. He can do his swimming classes again. You know, he can go do the things that he wasn't able to do because she felt committed to do this for the breeder. So, you know, in that case, it was a team effort. She didn't want anything to do. You know, she would go watch him sometimes, but she wasn't going to go in the ring with him. I mean, there was just no way.
Right. That wasn't.
Yeah, but it's like he's finished, and we just did it that way, and that worked out. And so that can happen too and be okay.
That's so funny.
But for her, it was just like, well, you know, they said he could probably be a champion, and you know, I just thought that would be fun. And it's like, okay, let's do it. And so we did it, and it's done. And you know, and the breeder can be happy that, you know, that now she's, you know, this puppy's finished, and you know, so sometimes
it's all good.
Yeah,
you had a good time in the process of it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome. Well, I'm going to open up for one last time for questions. And then also, you know, anything, you know, I know that you have a book, you have the school, you know, if for some reason someone couldn't come to us in person, which of course we would love for you to come in person. We have very fun workshops. We only bring the best of the best. And you have all these resources. So if someone can't, they can utilize all these other things. So can you spell out specifically what is available for folks, and how to get to you too?
Yeah. So my personal local dog training business is Braveheart Dog Training, but my online school, which is where most of the people who are out of state would be utilizing, unless we were doing like phone consults or something, is Show Dog Prep School. So that's showdogprepschool.com. From Shy to Showy's there. We have classes for stacking, for gating, for barn hunt, for injury prevention and fitness. And we have a great clicker course from Michelle Pulio. We have teaching the dog to be okay with grooming, all that kind of stuff. So we offer most of our courses with or without coaching. So you can just do the course, you know, and those run like $29 to $69, I think $99 from Shy to Showy and from Whelping to Winning, which is the big puppy program. So you can get those with or without coaching. I have the book From Shy to Showy is a book. It's available on Amazon, and I think a bunch of other websites sell it too. And then Ready, Set, Show is just more. I wrote that because Anna asked me to, Anna Bettina. We need to talk about
and
this.
People in Atlanta know Anna.
Fine. So I wrote Ready, Set, Show, which is just like, this is how dog shows work. And I'll bring some of those with me to the workshop. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, it looks like Chelsea's excited. She's got, hopefully she's bringing Lennon, who is this beautiful boy, this Malamute, who definitely knows he's a show dog. He is all about being pretty.
Nice.
He has other talents too, but that's her comment. She looks forward to seeing you this summer.
Good.
So if anyone has questions after the fact, please post in the comment section. I know Vicki will check in. I'll check in. Yep. I'm also going to turn this into a YouTube video so people can share it there as well. But thank you so much for your time. It's huge value. I just can't wait to meet you in person and learn
excited.
Even more. It'll be here before we know it. So
yeah.
So I'll post the link to the event after I make this saved, and we'll see you soon.
Sounds good.
Thanks again, everybody.